Your significant other has presented you with marching orders that it's time for the suburbs.
I hate the suburbs.
Killer walking, biking, public transit, transit-friendly housing, poof, vanish in front of your eyes. Or do they? Do not lose faith, my urban dweller. Today's video is 10 suburbs, starting with Arlington, Virginia, that have city-like amenities. Yes, I can confirm there will be a Cheesecake Factory, but at least you can walk there.
If you look right over here, I'm going to be having in the upper, would be for you, it'd be the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to have the urban scores. That's walking, biking, and public transit relative to the city. So for example, here I have Arlington, Virginia, relative to Washington, D.C. And as you can see, it's really no contest. Of course, Washington, D.C., one of the best urbanist cities in the nation, is going to have very, very high scores, but Arlington is nothing to sneeze at. And as you're going to find out, everything, all the creature comforts are right there, particularly if you are going to be living in this particular housing complex. Everything is within walking distance for you and all the conveniences at your fingertips. Just 5 miles from DC, you have Arlington, Virginia. And that 5 miles, of course, would equate to probably around 12 to 13 minutes if you drove, but we're not driving here on this channel. Taking the metro, it's the Clarendon, stop. It's just a couple of blocks from this complex, housing complex, which is 1021 Clarendon 1021. It's a great condo complex. You have Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, all within blocks. A couple of great bars. If you take this metro, it's right around 20 minutes. You start with the Silver Line at that Clarendon stop, and then you got to transfer to another stop to get to DC. But of course, with everything, it depends on where you're going in DC. Probably the biggest thing, folks, why I wanted to include this city is not only it's a great urban suburb, it's relatively close to DC. You know, DC was 8th in getting a job and 34th in starting a career. So now, of course, with the current administration, things could change rather rapidly. I heard they're giving buyouts to a lot of federal employees, so it may not be the best time to get a federal job.
I'm going to have Elon Musk killed.
But of course, everything is fluid. But we're starting off here with Arlington Heights, great suburb, which is actually very urban in nature. 16th for jobs, 25th for starting a career. We have Boston, of course, the city proper. And its suburb is Brookline, Massachusetts. You have the Green Line C is the transit. We're only roughly about 4 miles from between Brookline and Boston. Multiple spots for nightlife. Boston, of course, also is a great urbanist city, very similar to Washington, D.C. And closest grocery store, Trader Joe's. And I'm sure there's a whole paycheck there. The walk and transit score actually is a little less than Boston City proper. Biking actually is a little higher. So it's pretty good. So you got the bike option. I don't know if you're necessarily going to be able to bike all the way into Boston. You could do that with it only being 4 miles. So that's where you have all the creature comforts there, close to those condos. And not going to be cheap, but if that's what you want to have, that urbanism is very, very important to you, make sure you pick Brookline as your suburb. Gotta Point Condos is the condo complex for our next city of Tempe. And actually, this is the first city that the urban scores actually beat the main city of course, Phoenix. And in order to get from your condo complex to Phoenix, in case you're working, oh, by the way, Phoenix ranked 9th best for jobs and 12th to start a career. So, I mean, there's the chip manufacturing is going in there. So many jobs, so many tech jobs, healthcare. So it's wonderful, although be it very, very hot, great place for a job market. You take the Valley Metro Light. Only 10 miles, Tempe to Phoenix. You take the Valley Metro Light. You have a closest grocery store is a Safeway, several bars, of course, and restaurants. Tempe is one of those cities. There's actually neighborhoods where you don't even need the car. It's incredible. Now, of course, as a result, pricing, of course, is very, 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 because of the demand, Home pricing is high, as you can see, but Tempe should be on your radar. This is the number 3 city that is a suburb, but very city-like. If I've been serving that almighty YouTube algorithm god properly,
Algorithms!
you, the viewer, is looking for a relocation, specifically an urban relocation. So, what I have here is the agent referral questionnaire. It's very simple. Answer a couple of quick questions, and let's schedule a time and date convenient for you to have a very quick discussion to kind of see where your wants and needs are. And then through my extensive network of referral partners through just about every place in our wonderful land of liberty, I can find you that realtor. It all starts, however, with that conversation. So I'm going to have it also linked below on the video that you're watching. 12 miles from my home city of Chicago, we have Evanston, which is, I guess, technically a suburb of Chicago. It's serviced by the Purple Line and also the Metra. And the difference is, I can explain it, is the Purple Line is one of the multicolored lines of CTA, Chicago Transit Authority. That is more the local line versus if you want the commuter line or the suburban line is the Metra, which goes out into the suburbs, deep into the suburbs. And luckily you are serviced by both of them. Of course, also home to Northwestern University. The suburb in and of itself is quite expensive. I did find a condo property, the Optima Horizons condo complex, which has all the creature comforts. You've got Whole Foods, you've got Trader Joe's. So everything there. It was at one time, I believe, part of Prohibition. They do, of course, have a booze if you want the booze. A lot of college bars, but also there's also an actual established population around 75,000. A lot of families too. A lot of beautiful, gorgeous homes there. But you have the condos, you have the creature comforts, and of course you have my town. Been here for 25 years. Just so happen to be a Chicago realtor here in the city, serving the city, buyers and sellers. But Naperville makes that list. Great transit, urban score, so you've got everything you need. This is Evanston. 60th and 102 respectively for jobs and starting a career. Jersey City. Is that how they say it? That's a horrible Northeast accent there, New York accent. With, of course, the backdrop being New York. Great urban scores. Only 6 miles from Manhattan. That's, of course, if you're driving. To use transit, you'll be using Path. You've got, of course, ShopRite. You've got plenty of bars. Majority of people, New Yorkers, that are working in Manhattan, live in Jersey City and the surrounding Jersey, quote-unquote, suburbs, because, of course, Manhattan is so expensive. So Jersey City made the list. Not the highest as far as job market, but there's so many jobs there, good-paying jobs. So I wouldn't necessarily put too much stock in those rankings, but I wanted to give it to you just for your information. This is Jersey City. This next one coming up is a little surprising because everyone knows that heard of Atlanta, knows about the traffic is just crazy. It's a rapidly growing. It just so happens to be number 1 in starting a career in Atlanta. The suburb I'm picking is Decatur. So yes, you can actually use transit services. You've got to live in certain areas that can service you with that transit. You can take the bus, but the buses may not be as reliable. But you are going to be using, the light rail, which is the MARTA light rail. I did a video on there. If you go look into my playlist, I did a video on Atlanta, and I'm actually going to probably highlight because there is also the Beltline. I talked about the Beltline and MARTA. I'm going to do a separate video on that because it's very, very important. To help ease that congestion and all that traffic. I'm hoping more people, great folks such as yourselves, great urban dwellers, use the MARTA. So you have the MARTA. It's 7 miles, basically Decatur to Atlanta. You have the scores here again, right up here. I have the scores relative to the major city, Decatur and Atlanta. I said number 1 in starting a job and 23 in getting a job. So it's just market is scorching hot. You should be able to easily transfer into Atlanta and live around the surrounding area. So then you can live in Decatur and then, of course, go for nightlife and whatnot and restaurants in the city of Atlanta. You have Kroger, which is a major brand for grocery. And I mean, there's a multitude of, you can go into the neighboring, like Buckhead, for example, and go experience the nightlife if you want to. So number one, the really kind of takeaway from this particular suburb is you have that number one ranking with all the top corporate, Coca-Cola, FedEx. So Decatur should be on the radar for you. Ardmore, the suburb of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It is 10 miles from Philly. And okay, which at the time of recording are the Super Bowl champions. Thank God. Ding dong, the Chiefs are dead. Kidding, kind of. So you can live in those suburbs in Ardmore. This particular housing complex is the Ardmore Crossing condos. Again, not the cheapest. And you're going to see the theme here, this condos. If you want to have the walking, biking, and transit, you're going to have to pay for it. It is what it is. If one of those things isn't as important, or if you happen to have that car and you can live a little further away, then you can probably save some money. But if you do have a good job, and in a lot of these cities you're going to be transferring, you're going to have a pretty good job with decent pay. This is where you would like to live, Ardmore Crossing. You have Trader Joe's, of course. Got to have the Trader Joe's, TJ, only 0.2 miles away. Good bars, the Bercy. So you've got all three elements with the urban score. You want something different than New York. Philadelphia is a great urbanist city, and you can live in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. So Bellevue Towers is going to be the condos, luxury condos, for our next suburb of Bellevue, which is just outside of Seattle. We're talking about 10 miles from the city of Seattle. And the good news is, while not quite ready yet, I believe there's some delays, there will be the Bellevue Downtown Station, which it says it was opening in 2023, but I believe it's going to be opening soon. So that's the good news, right? For the here and now, you may need to, if you're moving, rather quickly, you may not have that stop close by if you're living in Bellevue, so you may have to drive. Great scoring with jobs. You have Seattle as a whole, 30th for jobs, 13th for starting a career. You've got, of course, QFC. I'm not familiar, so folks in the Pacific Northwest, let me know if that's a really popular spot. It might be kind of similar to the Jewels here in Chicago. So, of course, you got the grocery. You've got all the creature comforts all in Bellevue. The housing, of course, at Bellevue Towers is not necessarily cheap, but you've got all the creature comforts very close by, great living. So you can live there and then work in Seattle with those great job scores. This is Seattle. We're almost at the finish line. You guys liking this? I know some of you like the suburban life, but you want to have those urban creature comforts. And so maybe I'll do another video, because there are a lot of honorable mentions. Maybe down the road I'll do another video. But for number 9 here, South Burlington, Vermont. I bet you're surprised that I can consider Vermont. Now, they don't have the light rail or any type of metro rail, so you have to connect via bus. Okay, but one of the reasons why I kept this is Burlington. First of all, it's very, very close. You can bike. You can actually bike if you wanted from South Burlington to Burlington. Rankings wise, 4th in jobs, 36th in starting a career. So there are some great industries out there if you want to start a career, or if you want to transfer out there, a little bit more relatively lower key living, if that's what you were used to growing up. You may want to have South Burlington on the radar. Of course, grocery stores are all there. There's some really nice breweries. It's just probably more out of all the cities here, folks, probably the most chill, I would say, suburbs-wise, of the other 9 suburbs. But this is South Burlington. Keep it on the radar for yourself. Southwest Station Condominiums is where you want to live if you choose this suburb of Eden Prairie. Eden Prairie, 12 miles from Minneapolis. There is going to be a light rail opening. It's not, unfortunately, till 2027. So while Minneapolis has really, really great transit, this particular suburb, it will get there. So you'll be doing the bus. You can even bike when it's not extreme cold, but it will get there. Rankings-wise, it's Minneapolis. You have tech, biotech. It is one of the top, not only cities, but states, Minnesota overall, as far as getting a job. You have 27th in jobs, 11th in starting a career. Wonderful numbers. Of course, right up here, transit scores, Eden Prairie versus Minneapolis. Of course, Minneapolis is going to be better, but Eden's getting there. And again, the condos is the Southwest Station. All the creature comforts are right there. You have their local grocery store, Lundy's and Burley's. I've never heard of it. And Wildfire, Kona Grill. More a little bit of a suburban, kind of similar to the Cheesecake Factory, as I mentioned. They're those kind of chain outlets, but I imagine if you live in Eden Prairie, you'll be able to find some great restaurants. But this is Eden Prairie, the suburb of Minneapolis.